Today, I'm really new to this concept I'm going to be discussing. I got introduced to it about a month ago, and the gentleman that I was going to invite to come in and talk about this, who's an expert, had already gone back to Minnesota, so he threw me under the bus and just let me give the presentation. So, what we're going to talk about, I do have to offer a disclaimer also. If you see me moving a little bit stiff, I'm in Krav Maga. We do some sparring. I took a really hard shot when I slipped the punch wrong and my neck's kind of messed up. So if you see me kind of going like this for Winston Payne, I haven't had time yet, but I'm very ready. That's why I'm kind of like a little bit stiff. So anyways, we're a room full of business owners and sales people here today, so I want a little bit of participation. How many of you sit down with clients or prospects and give sales presentations?
Who doesn't? Better question.
Majority. Now, how many of you have sat down to give a presentation to a prospect and everything just flowed? They laughed at your jokes, they were leaning in, they were having conversations back, and you walked out with not only a client but a friend. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Yeah.
How many of you have had the opposite thing happen, where you sit down and give the exact same presentation, and they're leaning back in their chair, their arms are crossed, they're looking at you through squinted eyes, thinking if you're an alien or not, and you just can't wait to be done and get out of there? Have you had that happen?
Yes.
How many people aren't going to raise their hand no matter what the freak I ask? Okay, cool. So what we're going to talk about today, and as business owners, I'm sure you've all had the experience where you've taken a personality profile, either given by your boss or you went to a sales seminar and they had you take one, and those are designed to do what? To tell us about us, to tell us who we are, what we're strong at, where we do good at, etc. Wouldn't it be awesome if there was a way you could get the exact same information? You could find out a personality profile, you could find out communication preferences, and you could find out sales motivations of your prospects before you gave the presentation, which would enable you to speak to them in the way they want to be talked to. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Anthony Robbins actually talks about this. He has a quote that says, "Let your prospect determine your presentation." That's exactly what he's talking about. The problem is, most of us don't know how to do that, and if you don't know how to do it, where we're going to default is to talk from our communication preferences. We're going to talk about our buying motivations and what we think is important. And the reason you have those two different presentations where birds are chirping and flowers are blooming and the presentation where everything goes wrong is because if you were sitting down and you are talking to a prospect who is the same personality type as you, who has the same buying motivations as you, it's very easy to get into rapport. It's very easy to communicate with them and to have a good presentation. The problem is there's 4 primary personality types, and this dates all the way back to, I think it was Hippocrates was the first one to talk about these things, but there's 4 of them. So if you're always talking from your profile, 75% of the time you're going to be talking in the wrong language for your prospect. You're going to have difficulty getting into rapport, and you're going to have difficulty communicating beneficially to your prospect. So that's what we're actually going to talk about today, is there a system that you can easily and quickly determine the personality profile of your prospects so that you can communicate them the way they want to be communicated. Now, some of you may have heard of neuro-linguistic programming. This is not that. There is benefits to that, but this is something totally different. One of the things when I studied neuro-linguistic programming that came up a lot is people would say, well, this is manipulation. I'm going to cover that objection right up front so we can get past it and you guys can actually focus on what I'm saying. This is in no way manipulation. We're not talking about tricking people into doing anything. How many people in the room right now, and if you're not going to raise your hand, that's okay, but how many people have a product or service that you believe when your prospect purchases, they get value for what they purchased? Oh, more hands, awesome. How many of you believe the value they get is more than the cost of the product they bought? So as salespeople, and everybody in the room that's a member have heard me say this before, the goal of sales is to get a prospect intellectually engaged in a future result that's good for them and emotionally committed to take action to achieve that result. As a salesperson, our job is to solve problems. It's to get people access to systems, tools, products that will help them get from where they are to where they want to be. My opinion is if you don't utilize something like this, once you know about it, to where you can communicate the benefits in the way your prospects understand, you're going to, 1, lose sales, but more importantly, your prospects are going to lose the opportunity to purchase and benefit from your product or service. Not because they don't want it, not because they wouldn't benefit from it, not even because they can't afford it, simply because you didn't communicate it in a way that made sense to them. So what we're going to talk about is a company, and it's a new company I doubt anybody in this room has heard about it, called Global Bank Academy. Global Bank Academy was started by a lady named Sherry Tree, and that's actually her name. I don't know what they were thinking, but She cut her teeth in the sales industry many, many years ago in insurance, and then went on to direct sales and did some other things. And at one point, she figured out this concept of how to do personality profiling that we're talking about. And her claim to fame is she had a sales team that she was working with, and she took her personal income, and this is going to sound cheesy, but it's true, I've seen the document, from $8,000 a month to close to 6 figures a month when she trained her team how to do this because they were so much more productive in getting the message out in the right way. After she had that type of success, she founded this company. She has spoken on stage about this technology with Anthony Robbins, Sir Richard Branson, Les Brown. She was actually invited to be a guest lecturer at Harvard University, even though she only graduated high school, which is a very difficult thing to do, to get to talk at Harvard when you didn't go to Harvard and get your degree. So the technology that she uses has a lot of foundation and a lot of acceptance in the marketplace, even though it's probably the first time you guys are hearing about it. So what I want to do is give an example of how easy it is to do this, and then talk a little bit about the technology. So Kim, would you mind playing a game with me? Okay. I'm going to pick Kim because she likes me. She'll be nice. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of my businesses is a carpet and tile cleaning company. So I want you to imagine, I just did a walkthrough with Kim. She walked me through her lovely home. She showed me all of her concern areas, spots, traffic lanes, things she was worried about, and what she wanted me to fix. I then have to go measure everything out and work up a price. So what I would do is say something like this: Kim, I'm going to go measure everything out now, work up a couple different options and a couple different prices and see which one meets your needs best. While I'm doing that, I'd like you to help me so I can serve you better. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'd like you to play a little game. Take a look at these 4 cards. And by the way, because normally the cards are actually really nice, they're laminated, they're full color, but because my buddy was supposed to be doing the presentation, he didn't give me the cards on time, I had to print out some myself, so forgive this. Read the value statements on each of these cards, and then put them in order with the card that most meets your values on top to the one that meets them least on bottom. Okay? And I'll come back to you in a minute. That's one way it can be done. Now, when I first saw that, I thought, man, that's kind of lame. That's kind of cheesy. Like, who's going to do that? And my buddy, we were actually out at a club, and he walked up to strangers in the club and did this, and everybody did it. It was crazy. But the fact is, people love taking personality tests. If you're on Facebook, how many times have you seen stuff pop up on your wall? What Gilligan's Island character are you?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, people love these things. So there's typically not a lot of resistance to doing that. Now, this one way to do it when you're in person. The better way to do it is actually on the web. When on the web, and I'll give everybody one of my websites, I'm going to email it to them so you can actually get more information on this, because this is actually an hour and 40-minute presentation condensed to 20 minutes, so I can't go over everything. You'll see that I have a link on my homepage that says Get Your Success Personality Profile in 90 seconds. They click the link, they actually go to a website that has these exact same 4 cards, these exact same statements, they order them on the card, they put in their email address, they get sent a profile on themselves, on their personality profile, but here's the kicker. I get an email too. I get an email that tells me about them so that I know who they are. And that's how you can generate leads utilizing the system, as well as just increase your closing ratio. Now, I actually had somebody fill out my form from an email I sent out yesterday. And I want to go through what I got in my email last night about them. This person's primary, oh, by the way, I should say this first. The company bank is an acronym, and the acronym stands for the personality types. The 4 personality types they deal with, some deal with dogs and colors and jewels. We deal with blueprints, action, nurturers, and knowledge are the 4 personality profiles, because we're dealing mainly with buying decisions and business profiles. So this person was an action, and these are some of the things that I found out about them without ever actually meeting them. It gives me a list of the action customers' most common strengths, things like promoting, tactics, storytelling, putting things together, performing, negotiating, having fun, and a whole list of them. It tells me an action list of customers' most common values, things like freedom, flexibility, spontaneity, action, opportunity, excitement, attention, stimulation. It talks about their most common behaviors. They're really good negotiators. They're optimistic, sometimes to a fault because they have blind faith. They are graceful and have dexterity with tools, sports, and arts. They love beauty and anything aesthetically pleasing, and there's a whole list of those. They talk about the type of challenges they may face. They avoid making commitments. They get absorbed into a specific activity and forget the long-term objective. They neglect risk because of the thrill of excitement and opportunity. They react to situations and lose their cool. Some of the recommendations, if you're an action personality, on how you can overcome some of your weaknesses. Be more patient, resolve conflicts in a collaborative way, and it goes on. They talk about communication, and this is an important thing for sales. How do you communicate with them? Be cool and dress to impress. Action-oriented people are very aesthetic. They want people who are, professional. Display excitement and enthusiasm. Don't be a boring presenter. Skip the small talk and get straight to the point. They don't tend to like stories. They want to get right down to it because they have another thing to get to. Have a sense of urgency. Sell the sizzle, lifestyle, and dream, depending on what your product is. Don't overload them with too many details, charts, or too much information. You'll lose them if you do that. Introduce them to other successful A personalities as quick as possible. And then it goes down a list of their personality traits, of their action personality traits. So you get all kinds of information on these people. Now here's the thing. If you're not an action, like for instance, I'm a blueprint first. I'm an action second. And blueprints love systems. They love details. When I talk about what I do, I tend to go into a lot of detail. For an action-oriented person, I'm going to lose them. But if I don't know that, until their eyes roll in the back of their head and I see I've totally lost them, I have to switch things up. But by then, a lot of times it's too late. If I know that going up to it, I'll know to shorten my presentation, talk much less details about everything that I do, and give more broad strokes. So that's the importance of being able to communicate with somebody at their level. Damon, how much time am I at?
Oh, you have plenty of time.
Do I? Okay, then I'm talking too fast.
No, you're doing great.
Okay, so, Kim, do you mind if I share?
Sure.
Okay. So Kim's primary personality type is a nurturer, which is odd because so is Damon's and Michael's when I asked them to do this card game. A nurturer, and I can't go through, well actually I probably could because I'm talking fast, but I don't even have all of the different profiles. I just printed out the selling profile of each of the 4 action types. For a nurturer, you want to be authentic and genuine. As opposed to an action where you want to be excited and a little bit hypey to have energy, a nurturer wants you to be a little bit more down-keyed, a little bit more genuine and authentic so they believe you. A nurturer wants you to care more about them than the money. They want you to know that you're taking pride in helping them, not just collecting a check. If it's possible to introduce them to other, depending on what business you're in, if it's possible to introduce them to other members of your team or other customers, nurturers really appreciate that. Talk about causes and charities that your company is involved with, they'll relate to that. And even down to the greeting. Blueprints like handshakes, they're very formal. Action people actually prefer high fives and fist bumps. Yeah, I know, that's just, and I didn't make these up, just so you know, this is what I'm told. Nurturers like hugs. They're more of a sensitive type of person. Now, me and myself, I would never hug one of my clients just because I'm a guy working in their home alone with the woman. I don't want any. No, it's true. You got to be very sensitive so you don't make a woman feel uncomfortable when you're working in their home alone with her. But it goes over each personality profile. If you're a blueprint, which is what I am primarily, you want to be professional, organized, and on time every time. Blueprints hate tardiness. Give them a step-by-step system or plan. If anybody who caught my name of my company earlier, Integrity Cleaning Systems. It's obviously a blueprint thing before I even knew I was a blueprint. We like systems. Don't hype or use high-pressure tactics. We don't respond to that. Have the facts straight and your resources in place so you can prove to them any of the claims that you make. Minimize the risk of taking advantage of your offer by having money-back guarantees and things that will protect them, which all of you have heard about the way I do my money-back guarantee and my free room of cleaning and everything. Very blueprint of me. I've already talked about nurturer and action. The knowledge is the last one. Be smart and know your information. By the way, knowledges really don't like to be touched at all. They don't like handshake. They kind of like keep in their little bubble. Have resources and documentation in place that you can provide them to study. They want to go back and actually verify everything you said through their own study. Stay logical in your approach and don't get overly emotional or excited. They just want details and facts. Be able to debate and defend your product or service or bring somebody in who can. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to be high-tech questions. You got to be prepared for that or they're going to lose respect for you. Allow them to think about it. They're the one personality type that actually will. As we all know as salespeople, normally when they say, let me think about it, majority of the time that's a blow-off because nobody goes back and thinks about it because they don't even know what to think about, because they don't have all the information. But a knowledge will go back and they'll actually Google and pull up everything about you, your company, your product, your claims, everything that they need to know, so they don't make decisions typically on the first sales presentation. Now,
Travis, can I ask a question?
sure, go ahead, because I'm going to need some time to fill.
Is there a percentage breakdown of what most people are? Any insight to that?
I do not know the answer to that question. I've heard it once, and that was from a different personality profile, and it wasn't a straight 25% across the board, but it's pretty close. It's like 30%, 22%. They're really rather close. And everybody has all of the personality profiles within them, but they all have a dominant one. Like Blueprint's my dominant, Action's my secondary, Knowledge is my third, and Lease is nurturer, which does not mean I'm a jerk or anything, but it's just my least profile. But the actual exact percentage of each personality profile, I don't know.
But I also know that everybody has a little bit of everything. We have one dominant one, but from everything a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just one of it, yeah.
And since we have a little bit of time, I will answer some more questions if I can. But I do want to bring up another facet of this since there's a little bit of extra time. This works great in sales environments, but what this is ultimately about is communication. And communication applies to all aspects of the life. I've heard of people that affecting their marriage. And I'll give you a perfect example. As I said, I'm a Blueprint Action Knowledge nurturer. My wife is a Nurturer Knowledge Action Blueprint. We are the exact opposite. Now, depending on how you look at it, this can be a match made in heaven, because where I'm weak, she's strong. Where she's weak, I'm strong, and we form one great person between the two of us, if you know that. If you don't know that, you may look and say, they do everything exactly the opposite way I do, and I'm pretty sure they do it just to drive me nuts. And it creates a lot of conflict in the marriage. But if you know what it's caused by, you can appreciate it. Same thing with your kids. If you have a kid who is a Blueprint and you're in Action, you try to motivate them. From your standpoint, they're not going to get it. They're going to think you're crazy. So this is about communication overall, and it can apply to any area of your life that communication is needed. Make sense? Okay, so what have I got, like 2 minutes, Damon?
If you have any more questions?
Yeah, any more questions? I ran through really quick because I didn't know how long it was going to take me because I'd never given this presentation. What I am going to do is email everybody, and if you are new to the group, please give me your card. I'm going to email you a link where you can actually view the full hour-long presentation. That goes much more in depth on the personality profile, much more in depth on how to communicate with them than I did today. I just wanted to give an overview.
What's the name of the gal that does this?
Sherry Tree.
Sherry Tree. It's C-H-E-R-I. Not Sherry, but it sounds like it when she says it. But it's Cherie, I think. Tree. Yes, sir.
Applying this to cold calling over the phone that we get from a client that's been referred, how can we tell if that's true?
Okay, two things. Short of them going to your website and doing the online game first where you have it. This company also, the cards in the online system is an entry-level product. They also have full multi-day seminars that you can go to, and one of them is called speed coding, which allows you to code somebody without them doing the cards based on the words they say to you. Are they auditory, visual, kinesthetic, based on their appearance, based on the type of job they have. So there are ways that you can, if you're trained, which I'm not, that you can come up with an idea of their personality just through talking to them, but it's much easier and quicker if they'll just tell you by handing them the cards.
See, when you get a call on the phone.
Yeah, when you get a call on the phone.
That's history area.
Right, that's a little bit different, but
Unless there's some syntactical things that you people are cueing to during the first presentation, the first 7 seconds of the conversation.
right. And most of the time, I don't know how it is in your business for sure. In my business, the phone call typically is the goal is to schedule an appointment where I go talk to them. And I give the presentation in person. I don't give too much of the presentation over the phone. So you're right, if they're calling you cold and you don't have any communication with them, you're not going to know this right up front. But when you go to make your full presentation, hopefully you'll be able to get a chance to
So
figure
for
it
home
out.
inspection, we've only got that one shot on the phone.
Right.
Cool. That's it.
Right, and from that aspect, from the phone call, and like I said, unless they're going to your website first, this won't apply as much to that initial phone call as doing the presentation in person.
So you'll close it.
There are ways to determine that. I mentioned before, when we discussed doing this presentation, one of our big Remax offices in California, one of the gentlemen actually employs this type of technique when he's doing sales, and he has a whole library full of personality profile and how to deduce, what type of profile you're dealing with. But you just got to do a little research. You probably have to come up with something.
Have you heard of how he does that on an initial phone call?
No, I know he does, but I don't know the details of it. When we go to our conventions, we have big blocks of things that people are doing around the country, and that was one of the blocks, but didn't go into too much detail. It was kind of broad, about his office and the things that he does at his office, but, they showed him all the phone work and things like that. So,
So, you'll be a realtor, you get that cold call, and it's like,
yeah.
how can I work, how can I hear what their need is? So
Right.
I'm talking.
And a lot of times people are apprehensive on the phone to give you any type of information, so it's a great idea if you can determine what type of profile you're dealing with to open up the lines of communication.
Now, I will say-
Without them feeling vulnerable.
Right, absolutely.
That's actually Roseanne, I want to say. One thing that, well, a phone call, because it's mainly verbal, you don't get to see them. You can listen for verbal cues. Are they auditory? Are they using words that have to do with, it sounds to me like, and then they're an auditory personality. You can, if they're saying it looks like, then they're a visual person. So you get some verbal cues as to how they like to communicate, but on a short phone call, those are going to be limited, right? Roseanne?
I'm in the insurance sales, so I do get a lot of calls to me that I have no clue who they are. I do let them speak quite a bit in the beginning. I mean, I grade them, of course, and everything else, but I do listen to what they're saying. And that kind of clues me in on how they're addressing themselves to me. And that's how I kind of figure out, you know, are they laid back, are they, you know, uptight, what have you, so.
Right, and that's a good point. Speed of communication, I typically talk really quick, but if I'm going to sit down with somebody and they talk very slow, I try to slow my rate of conversation down, because that's how they process words, and I can actually talk so fast that they won't hear me. Same thing with volume, if they're soft-spoken and you're a real loudspeaker, you can modify that way too. That goes more to neuro-linguistic programming than what we're doing here with personality profiles. It's a little bit different of a trip, but it's the same concept. Any other questions before Damon yanks me off the stage?
I got the big book.
Yeah, I know. All right, well,